I'm the Bard and this is Bartending, and today I'm going to show you my expensive box. So, this is my tools box for bar tools. I'm going to go over the 5 tools I use, which are not in this box because this is where tools go to die. So, stick around if you want to save some money and you enjoy hosting, because these are going to be your first 5 tools to start a home bar with. And if you know anyone else who wants to get into bartending or start hosting and making drinks, or just likes mixology or science, then shoot them my way. I'd appreciate it, and they'll appreciate you thinking of them. I'm the Bard, jack of all trades and thief of hearts. I'll try anything once, but my specialties are drinks, D&D, and devilish charm. Welcome to Bard & Company. First up, not in that box, Boston Shakers. You'll notice I'm surrounded by them. Most people, for some reason, I don't understand why, will hide their Boston Shaker inside of another. And that way, when it's wet and you just cleaned it, it'll be suctioned and not come out. I hate that, it's silly. I also don't know if both of them are there, so I stack it with small one on top. That way I can see both of them, and it doesn't get suctioned nearly as bad, even if you screw up. So, highly recommend stacking them that way. That way they're not invisible. Because I've had one get stuck before, and it sucks. But anyways, Boston Shakers, I think they were made and used in Boston back when bartending was just starting out to be like flair bartending, right around the soda jerk time. You've also got your Japanese cocktail shakers, which have a built-in strainer, which, as cool as that is, and as Japanese and weeby as I am, these things suck. Like, they're high class, high society, they look good, they're really classy to make a martini and pour it out. You do look good doing it, but oh my god, the busboy or your bellhop or you, if you are bartending at home, are gonna hate yourself, because this shit is hard to clean, and if it's cold, if you shake cold drinks, it can suction closed, and if you're making multiple drinks throughout the night and you haven't cleaned it because you're making the same drinks, this might get sugar on it if it's a sweet drink, and you'll never get it off. And then to clean it, your seals will also get dirty. It's just a mess. So, unless you got a high performance one, and you have a special bar and this and that, and you have somebody else to do your dirty work, condemn them to cleaning your Japanese shaker. Otherwise, I just go with a Boston Shaker. And I'll show you why in a second once I get my next tools ready. Could you get me some ice? 4 ice cubes.
Is that 4?
Yeah. I always use 4 ice cubes.
Is there a story behind that?
Yeah. It's a mathematical dividend of 12, and I also overfill my ice cubes, so that way they're a little more than standard, because normally you need like 5 or 6 ice cubes, but 4 is what you need when you overfill them. Set this over here. Now the trick is I have to go fast enough in real time, not edit time, so that way my ice doesn't melt. Oh, by the way, I seem to keep forgetting, don't put carbonated mixers in your Boston Shaker. Every once in a while I find myself stupidly doing that. The carbonation expands and they explode on you. I've done it many times, I don't know why. But anyways, next up is Jiggers. No, it's not a racist word. Jiggers, with a J. We've got my weeb set, a very audio crunchy. We've got my weeb set of Japanese cocktail shakers. These were in the box. So, aside from those, I have these cheap $4, really sharp edged, like 2 pieces of metal glued together kind of jiggers. I love them to death. It's all personal preference. These have a very sharp edge, which I really appreciate, because compared to the round and sexy lips of the Japanese shakers, which if you see flair bartenders, they normally use these because They fit in the hand and they flip around really easily. And they're just really easy to manipulate for flair bartending. But realistically, I just use this little one because the sharp edges gets the drink out of it. It doesn't roll down the edges and make a mess. Whereas with Japanese shakers, because it's rounded, it'll always have that little drip. It'll come back and it'll make messes. I'm bartending out in the woods half the time, so I need a thing that won't dirty itself super easily. I prefer to be more efficient than flair, but flair comes with good efficiency. So anyways, back in the box of where you'll rot. So I have 3 of these. I put one in every station, so highly recommend. Highly recommend. Other than that, we're gonna want a wine key. A wine key, which is not a key to open wine. It's named after the German who invented it, Mr. Wineke, W-I-N-K-E. And so, you can call it a corkscrew. It's technically more than a corkscrew because it's a multi-tool. And you'll see, it's also called a sommelier knife because it's for wine sommeliers. But that's more of a colloquial term. But it has, I have screwed up. My wine's in there. And I need something with a cork. Haha! This is not how this goes. So, everyone knows how to use a wine key. It's okay. So a wine key, real simple. You want a decently nice one, although I have, when I go out into the woods and do other shit, 99 or $1 ones. $1. 99 or $1 cheap ones. They work just fine. But got my really nice one Mom gave me. But yeah, you just place it in and just screw it into the cork. And then the nice thing is with these ones, you twist it, you pull back a little, and you leverage up. And then you do the same thing again. You come back down, and it's pulled up through leverage. So you're using this as a lever to pull up, and these anchor it. Real simple. Like, it feels weird to explain a wine key if that was not a good explanation and you actually need an explanation. I will do it on a different one another time. But definitely ask me to. I'll go through the motions for you if you need it. Other than that, I appreciate wine keys. Go back in your hole. Wine keys for their knife, because on a lot of wines, they have a plastic label around the cork. So you want to cut that off of it, just slice it all the way around, and then use the corkscrew and open it. Another thing on the wine key is they have this right here, which is a bottle opener. When she does bartending apparently, let's hope this doesn't explode. You can make it look fancy, do this and that, yada yada, but you can do a lot of stuff with this. A wine key is pretty much essential, and I love having one in my back pocket, but yep, still tastes like death. Healthier death. Not American death, but oh, if you ever want a fancy Coke, go to the Mexican aisle, because near the Mexican food you can find like usually real sugar, different flavored original Coke and original Pepsi and things like that. So highly recommend those if you're going to be doing just a few things. If you're cooking or if you're cocktailing in bulk, use liters. Just go to the liter aisle. Oddly, I like it. I'm really surprised. Normally I don't like Coke, but I'll use that for a cocktail later, so I'm not going to waste it. But one that I actually like is a speed opener. So, I freaking love my playing card bottle opener. I've used this before for what I'm about to show you, but it's not my primary. But if you want to be fancy and impress people, these are like $1 online. Just get a ace of spades. It's actually really nice. If you have weaker hands or anything like that, or you often hurt your hands opening bottles, because some people do have legit issues, because this is here and you use your palm and your wrist, it's a different leverage style. So these are actually really nice to open a ton of bottles with. So I highly recommend a playing card, but that's not my main one. If you're starting out, I highly recommend a speed opener, but it's not to open bottles. It does. It does. I used to do this all the time. I have no idea what's wrong. Was this a twist top? Son of a bitch. Can't we just have bottles with bottle openers? The Cokes do it. So. I hate this. Okay, always check your bottles to make sure they're not twist offs. But anyways. So, you can do a lot of flair with them, which is why I appreciate them. But, that aside, now that my station is sticky, if you have oak pieces or apple wood or even cinnamon, lighters are always handy. If you're at a bar, usually you can ask and someone will smoke. But I've done this many times. And so now I'm smoking my cinnamon or whatever wood, and I place it on the speed opener because it has a big wide metal area, and therefore it won't burn your table, it won't start your tablecloth on fire if you're for some reason needing a smoked glass and you're on a cloth tabletop. Some venues will require that if you're a bartender. It depends where you are, but you can do that, and then in the Boston shaker, make your cocktail, and then by the time you're done, you have a smoked glass. Interesting. I'm kind of curious. Yeah, that does make a big difference. Moving forward. But yeah, no marks, good to go. Next up, one that you might find a little bit interesting, but I use it all the time. Strainers. So if you're getting into mixology or you enjoy doing sciencey stuff, then we're gonna go ahead and focus on strainers. If not, I have a sixth one, which I'll explain why it's a sixth and not the fifth. But of the five, I would recommend a strainer. I personally use this cheap one all the time. It hooks onto the outside of a bowl or whatever. So I put coffee filters in that and do a bunch of crazy mixology stuff. I make 19 or 1700s cocktails and things like that, which require a strainer. Big science, cool stuff. If you get a Japanese strainer, which are super fine mesh, it's gonna be almost too fine for most of what you need because nothing can get through, including the liquid. So be careful on the size between the wire mesh. But most people for cocktails are gonna use this basic standard one, which it has a longer handle and a tip because when you're making a drink, you could hold it because it has a longer handle and then just pour out into the strainer and keep your seeds and whatever out of your cocktail. Easy. I personally, unlike most people, excluded a certain tool. Most people would expect me to say a Hawthorne strainer. I got this nice looking skull one, which I do love. It is very nice. I use the spring out of it more than anything else, which, whatever. Anyways, the Hawthorne strainers are great. They are useful. You put them right on, you pour it out. It strains all your goop out, aside from fine particles and some foam. Sometimes you want foam, but you push it up and down to get more of a gate, which the gate is down here and it gives you more or less liquids or finer or smaller pieces. Honestly, Hawthorne strainers are essential once you're doing professional bartending, like a lot of bartending, but don't worry about it to begin with, because you can get by without it by either using the strainer or what I always do with Boston shakers. You crack it open and you just let this tiny bit of air out. Like none, little, big stuff. And you can actually keep your ice cubes out of it. You can pour it right in. Good to go. So, cocktail. This is carbonation, so pointing back to my love of screwing that up. Okay. Bit of a gate. Ta-da! Yeah, you don't need a Hawthorne strainer to start. You can get around it. It's not as super sexy, but it does actually show skill, so you can get around it. But that's my 5 basic bar tools, but the 6th bonus one, which you might omit strainers depending on how much you're gonna do. As far as like crazy mixology, 6th tool, a knife! So, knives are extremely useful. You can cut fruits, you can do all this other stuff, you can saber champagne if you really have to. Knives are super useful. But the reason it's not in my bar tools, first 5, is because this is the one I use in my bar. This is my kitchen knife. I already own one. So chances are you have one. Chances are if you're at a bar, they have one. Chances are if you're out camping, someone's got a kukri or a machete or something silly. So someone's gonna have a knife. It's really good to carry your own. I recommend a small pocket knife if you're out in the woods or somewhere weird. But worst case scenario, your sommelier key has the little knife on it, so you'll get away with it. But if you're doing real stuff, like zesting fruits and things like that, you will need a knife. Can't really get around that. But if you aren't freaking out about your garnish game, you don't need a knife. So, I have no affiliate links for these things, and I have a Patreon instead to support myself. So if you're the kind of person who likes to donate to help aspiring artists, I would greatly appreciate it next time. But other than that, that's what I got for bar tools. But coming up next, you might want to know the first 5 bottles that you want to start a bar with. So I'm going to put my favorite 5 types of booze. I'm going to put my workhorses out, the main bottles I use all the time. And I'm also going to give you some options depending on your taste for those 5 types. And I'll explain why you want them.